All right, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Before this, we had a work session where we had a special presentation about our special education services, which was really amazing. So I would highly encourage people at home to take an opportunity to tune into that if you have some time to learn about the services that our district is offering our students. It's really remarkable. To begin tonight, we are going to start off with the most boring of things, our consent agenda. So if we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the September consent agenda.
Wonderful. Do we have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. All right, now we get to move on to all the exciting stuff. So next up is our spotlight section. And this evening, we are going to start with an introduction to our new student resource officer. We're really excited about that. We love the one that we currently have, and we're really excited to add another one to our team. So I invite you guys to join us and introduce our new resource officer. This is Officer O'Loughlin and Officer Wolfer. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us. I am Captain Dan O'Loughlin from the Sherwood Police Department. Thank you for having us. Just a few words. It's a big, exciting day for, I imagine, for you all, equally as exciting for us. I just wanted to say that getting to this point of having a second SRO, Preston Newman, as your new second SRO in the school district is a great success. And I know that you see it as that, and we definitely see it as that from the police department. We want you to know from us to you as a school district and for the citizens of the city, we really appreciate the support that you've given us all the way around in doing this and getting to this point of having a second SRO and seeing the importance of that, not just for the safety of our schools and our kids and the staff, but also for the connection that we get, right? It's not just a connection and a positive interaction that we get to have with kids, but it's what the kids give back to us as well. And it balances us as police officers. So this is a great thing and a great day. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I was back there, I've been a police officer for 30 years and now as a captain, but back in the day, I was an SRO. And it was one of my most passionate moments in my career of all the things I've done in regards to fulfilling. Felt so fulfilled in the role. And so I appreciate the opportunity for Newman to get that opportunity as well. That said, a little bit about Preston Newman as our second SRO. We'll give him a second if you have the time to have a few words. But I can tell you that you're getting a quality police officer in your schools and connecting with your staff and with your parents and with your kids. Preston came to us as a lateral police officer from Woodburn, was there for two and a half years, has been with us in Sherwood for a year and a half. So he is a seasoned officer who's not just seen the Sherwood way, but seen it in other jurisdictions of how policing can be and how connectivity with community can be. So that's terrific. I was talking to Preston ever so recently ago. I didn't get to be on his interview panels in regards to getting this position at the police department. But in speaking with him in regards to like, why do you want to do this? Because it's passionate. Like I said, I was past SRO. You have to be the right fit because we're stepping into your world and we want to make sure that we can fit as best as we can. He said something that was interesting to me. He said back in the day, he went to college and he wanted to be an educator. And so he pursued that for a period of time And so that's been a passion and something in his head for a long time. So it makes sense. He has family that's in education as well. So he's entrenched in this world, and it makes sense why he wants to be here. So I won't take any more of your time up. Thank you, as I stated, and I'll give the mic here to Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Dano, and thank you to the board for having us. I'm excited to be in this position for a lot of reasons, but namely just being able to interact with students in a totally new way. I mean, this feels like a new job that I'm getting because my coworkers are now teachers and students, and staff members, and then all the people I interact with are now students. Not that I don't on patrol, but not necessarily in the same light. Like Dano said, I was going on vacation, so I went to Western Oregon, full intent, criminal justice, be a police officer. Did some ride-alongs. Everyone said, well, you can still be a police officer, but don't necessarily major in criminal justice. So I then thought the educator route, ended up doing administration at Portland State University, got my master's in educational leadership and policy. And I always thought, well, if I wasn't in this realm working with students, what else would I be doing? And that was law enforcement. My master's degree, I focused my thesis. We didn't necessarily have a thesis, but it was in student retention. And I see that even as a police officer, how students need some other connection in their life, not just sitting in the school, to stay there engaged in being there. And I hope that even in a police role, I can hopefully provide that at least a little bit to students. And then, like you said, my wife is a middle school teacher in Scappoose. And so sometimes if we're at the dinner table, the people I'm interacting with and the people she's interacting with are a little bit different. So some of our stories don't necessarily match up. And I think now we're going to be interacting with the same group. And I think it'll be kind of cool to hear what she's dealing with and hear what I'm dealing with, and then how maybe we can kind of brainstorm together a little bit of kind of being the best we can be. And she always talks about how important it would be to have an SRO there. And so some of the things that she's dealing with, hopefully I can maybe implement that as well. So like I said, thank you so much for letting me be here. I am really excited. October 1, 2, I will be there ready to go. It's going to be a lot to learn because, like I said, it's like a brand new job, but I'm ready to learn it and ready to be here. So thank you.
That's awesome. Little clap. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Your stories are going to match up because middle school kids are a unique, amazing group of kids. And I bet you they might just be as tough as some of the people you normally interact with.
Yeah, or more, I think. I'm
Yeah.
thinking more.
I definitely guarantee that. But we are excited to have you. I know just at the last game I was standing next to Officer Wolfer, and I heard some kid come up behind him and she's like, "Wolfer, I'm coming back to this school." And he was like, "Really?" And they just had this funny little dialogue back and forth. And it was so cool to see those connections and this kiddo who clearly had built a relationship with him. And our middle school kids will really, really benefit from having the opportunity to do that with you as well. So
Yeah.
We are so appreciative to have you
Thank you.
here. We wish you tons of success. And I'm sure I will see you around the middle school.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a picture of my kids so you can be
So I'll
like,
be on the lookout. Yeah.
like be your little buddy. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you guys. All right. Up next, we are going to hear from each one of our building principals. The beginning of the school year is always a really exciting time and full of lots of interesting little challenges. And so tonight we'll get to hear some of that. And I believe that are we changing orders? Are we starting with whoever wants to go first?
Okay,
Tonight we're going to start with the middle school with
That's
Miriam
right.
Underhut.
thank you. So Abby, I don't know if it's okay to say this or not, but I already gave Preston a picture of.
It's totally okay. In fact, it gives me hope.
Just kidding. Superintendent Lyon, Chair Hawkins, and Board of Directors, thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight to share with you the events and stories to start off our 23-24 school year. We're really excited about how the school year has started, with the exception of day one with all the kids and the drop off in that morning. Apologies to all that caused for all of you. However, we did quickly respond and it's been smooth sailing ever since. And so thank you for all of you people that helped with that, exec team and my team as well. So after a busy summer of hiring, planning, and collaboration, the administrative team was ready for staff to return. This day is always one of my favorite days of the year because staff just come back so energized and ready to start a school year. And I always have believed that there are very few, if any, professions where every single year you get a fresh start when you're in education. And so the teachers and staff really embrace that. The energy is contagious and it just fills a room, and they're talking about their summers and they're talking about what they're looking forward to this upcoming year. We led staff through just embedded a lot of team building activities with them throughout the in-service week, every single day, just so they could get to know each other. In that size of a school, we have to be really intentional about doing things so that they can get to know each other. And we have a lot of new staff members, and just on a number of occasions, the new staff have just felt welcomed by not only people at SMS, but also as a district. In addition to some team building, we built on some of the work in our learning and planning from last year with sustainable systems, connections and relationships, and high impact strategies. And based on the feedback that we got in our survey, that's just what staff wanted, and it was really positive. On August 30th is when the fun really starts. With the help of our leadership students, we had our first day with sixth graders, 371 of them. They were excited, coupled with some nerves, but they have just been such a joy and a pleasure to have at the middle school, and they seem to be transitioning really, really well. Our leadership students, I just need to do a shout out to them, because without them, that day cannot look the same for our sixth graders. They just put them at ease by just being there. The following day, the energy and excitement just goes to a whole nother level when we have our seventh and eighth graders join us. They're a little bit more comfortable than the sixth graders, but it was really fun to experience because it really was a positive start to the year. Each grade level had an assembly so that we could introduce staff and we could review our expectations, which we've made some adjustments to, as well as just some competitive relays so that they were able to just interact with each other and have some fun. And the vibe in those assemblies was just really positive and setting a good stage to the year. And the students really genuinely seemed happy to be back at school. You're all happy to have them back, and I think they're just as happy to be back. So currently we have 1,124 students in the building. Another area that we are focusing on is just around celebrations with the students throughout the year. And so we are implementing a student of the month every month that has a theme of a behavior or a trait that we want students to demonstrate when they're at the middle school. This month, it's self-starters. And what we're going to do, we're going to build on that. There'll be 30 students every month recognized, and they will be recognized at a continental breakfast, and we will be bringing families and inviting them in as well. And so opening up the building and really starting to get families back into the building, celebrating with their students and with staff that have nominated them. So we're really excited about that. Speaking of celebrations, I want to share just a little bit of some things I've heard from teachers, from some parents, and then from some kids. So one teacher said countless about the start of the year, countless students helping each other all day, every day, from logging into curriculum to picking up something that another student had dropped. It's great to see. Another staff member commented that students got a chance to build true connection and team concepts within the classroom, and it's been an awesome start. A parent commented after back to school night, the classrooms look and feel like places where kids can be themselves. Several staff members shared that the new model back to school night meet and greet was such a bright spot, and it was a great way to meet parents. And we're still getting information from back to school night, feedback from families on how we can improve on that too. And personally, I was able to meet more parents in that model, that meet and greet, than I think I ever had. And the highlight for me was having the kids showing their guardian or family member or parent around. It was really like, come on, we got to go this way, we don't have time to talk. And they'd show them how to open their lockers, and it just gave me chills that night. It was really cool. So the last story I want to share is from our skills center teacher, Sherry Whiteley Ross. And she heard, so our skills center is our highest need students, and she shared an email with me. I just wanted to share what happened in my class during back to school night. I had 7 to 8 families of my teacher assistants come through my classroom. Some parents told me that their children were really excited to be teacher assistants in my class. Other parents said that this class is their child's favorite class of the day. The parents seem genuinely happy that their children have the opportunity to work with students with disabilities and seem to appreciate hearing more about how their children are contributing to my classes. And it was an awesome night. She goes on to say a few more things, but most importantly, my goal is to create a more inclusive school environment for all students. I have seen how all students benefit from working together. And then the last one, I said that was the last one. This isn't the last. This is the last one. This goes out to my elementary colleagues. A sixth grader said, middle school is better than BizTown. Yep, that's right. Nice. So we're off to a great start. And we're looking forward to partnering with all of you and with our families and to a successful year at SMS. And at any point, we are really proud of what's happening in that building at SMS. And I would welcome any of you to come and spend some time with us if you can free up your schedule. So thank you again for letting me share. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Adam Mitchell.
Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyon, Board of Directors, thank you for having me here tonight. As Mary Ann said, it's exciting to get to talk about our school and all the things that are going on. I think Mary Ann talked about the excitement about a new year and the refreshing part of all of that. And that is wonderful. And I think sometimes in that you get caught into a little bit of a routine that makes it a little hard to gauge how things are going. And so when I was thinking about this presentation, I thought our best barometer are kids who are new to us and who are experiencing Sherwood High School and the district for the first time. And so I was given an opportunity over the last couple of days to talk with a student who moved here from a different city and a different high school. And the conversation was just so positive and so wonderful. And she talked very much about the staff that immediately reached out to her when they found out she was new to our building and worked to try to find ways to get her integrated into the school quickly. Students treating her well, having conversations with her, introducing themselves, making acquaintances and getting to know her. Talked about how our trimester schedule was a wonderful welcome change from where she'd been, and that the variety of courses and the elective offerings and the changes that we have within our schedule. She was just very excited about those opportunities that didn't exist at the school she was at before, and sometimes don't exist at quite a few of the other schools. We're very fortunate. So it's just wonderful to have that as a barometer. And to just hear that when people walk into our environment and our culture, that they're really enjoying it. I think in our building, there's just a sense of calmness and a sense of just focusing on students and teaching and learning. And that over the past few years hasn't been the case. And I think the easy and yet the small answer is that we don't have any COVID restrictions we have to worry about. And that is wonderful and that is freeing. But when I really thought about it, I think the answer more is that our teachers are developing leadership that is incredibly effective across our school. We've worked very hard over the past few years to develop a teacher-based leadership team, and that team is doing amazing work. And when I look at all the different things that go on, and I just go back to that is what is driving the success of our school. And so that group, just to give you a little background, that group consists of all of our department coordinators. So one person from each: math, language arts, social studies, CTE, all of those, as well as some of our specialist positions, such as our college and career coordinator, our athletic director, mental health specialist, instructional coach, a few others. And then we have a few at-large positions of teachers who just want to be a part of it. And that has increased from 2 to 5 this year because great things are going on and they want to be a part of it. And so that group, before school started, we met and we really talked about what do we need to do to improve our school. And there's a lot of things, and we have goals in our school improvement plan and a lot things that are going to help us out a lot. And sometimes it's hard to find something that everyone can connect to. And so looking through data, bringing their experience to it, we settled on, settled on is probably not the right word. We're excited about increasing our attendance at our school. And that is something that all 140 of our employees that go to the high school every day can work on together. And so that work has been going on, and that leadership team is driving that work. And they have a lot on their plate, and it's amazing what they're doing. So in their on Wednesdays in their professional learning communities, they are driving the work of attendance, which involves looking at data, relationship building, checking weekly on the progress, the strategies that are being used. And in addition to that, probably a little more of the PLC time, definitely more of the PLC time, is grading practices, teaching practices, content, curriculum, culture and climate, and all of those things. So that group has a lot on their plate and a lot that they are taking on, and they're doing a fantastic job. And so that's a real bright spot for us. The other piece is that I'm not sure exactly why, and I'm not sure I want to bring it up, but I'm going to knock on wood that our cell phones have gone away dramatically. I wouldn't say they're all the way away, but they feel like it's gone away, and kids are really focused on teaching and learning. And so again, that is an effort from our teachers and our staff. And so it's been very effective for our students. To go back to our students and back to the theme of like new students that kind of tell you how things are going. We had a student start with us last year, and she really struggled. She struggled with discipline and behavior. She struggled with her attitude, her engagement with adults. And after having gone through part of last year and then coming into this year, she is a whole new student. And I know that that's not all attributed to us, but what we're seeing is a student that's happy, a student that's engaging with adults, that's engaging in the activities at our school, both in class. I've seen her at athletic events, activities. She's just a whole new person. And I'd like to think that part of it is being part of Sherwood High School and the culture that goes on there. And so those are two very small instances out of 1,700 kids, but I think across the board, that's kind of the vibe and the culture that's going on. And so we're really excited about that this year. So thank you for having me. And I'm honored to introduce the amazing, the beautiful, the wonderful Amy Mitchell.
It was really Millie next, but I jumped up. Good evening, Dr. Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, and Board of Directors. Thank you for having me this evening. The start of the school year at Hawksview has felt overwhelmingly positive. And as I sat down to write this, it was a little hard because it has felt so calm and so positive. And when I was thinking of our goals as a staff for the year, the word partnership came to mind. Our staff is committed to partnering with families and students for the success of their education. During in-service week, we spent a lot of time talking about effective partnership. And what might seem obvious, but was worth a lengthy discussion and planning, was that in order to achieve effective partnership, we have to have relationships. And that is relationships among our staff, relationships with our students, and relationships with those families. So our teachers have been diligent about starting the school year strong and creating an environment where our students can learn and feel cared for. So rather than just sharing my perspective, I asked staff, parents, and students to just share a few sentences about how they feel about their first few weeks of school and what it means to them to be at Hawksview. And here are a few things that they shared. It has been rejuvenating to be back with my students this year. They are excited to be back in school and to be back in STEM. My students are working hard on building their collaboration skills, and we have already completed our first engineering unit, and we are excited to move on to coding next. Seeing some of my students interact with each other reminds me that kids are inherently kind. They want to be there for each other. A teacher shared, I was playing a math game with one of my first graders, and he thought it was hilarious to pick the hardest numbers he could. First grade teacher in dual language shared that for the first few weeks, it feels like the Von Trapp kids. They can all be scattered around the room, digging into their backpacks or drinking water, chatting with friends. But I start singing and they rush to the meeting area. She said, I love it because the songs help them acquire language in a fun and intentional way. One of our classified staff said, the start of the year has felt exciting as we watch kids fall into routines and make new connections with their teachers, one another, and staff. I'm loving growing my relationships with our 4th and 5th graders, and watching them begin to take on their new roles as helpful Hawks. And also taking on their roles of being the older kids on campus. Our 5th graders are really beginning to own the responsibility of being the oldest ones here and helping step in with our littles when given the opportunity. And one classified staff member said, Hawksview, when I'm at Hawksview, it feels like I am working with family. I reached out to parents, and while yes, we're married, we didn't actually talk about this, but I reached out to new families because I thought what better gauge than to see how they feel being at Hawksview. One said, I was so nervous for my 1st grader to start at a new school with new teachers, friends, and routines. But so far, she could not be happier. She walks to school with a smile and confidence, and she walks out in the afternoon the exact same way. I have been incredibly impressed by the sense of community that I feel from Hawksview, even in these first few weeks of school. It has been great to connect and build relationships with parents at drop-off and pickup. Her classroom teacher has been thoughtful and responsive when I have had questions. And I have been impressed to see our leadership team involved during pickup and drop-off and how many people already know my daughter's name. Despite the fact that Hawksview is a larger school, it feels like the school community is looking out for her and they are eager to get to know her, for which I am incredibly grateful. Another parent shared, what can be said, I loved this line, what could be said about Hawksview that wouldn't warrant some type of award? Growing up, I envisioned an atmosphere for my son that he now gets to experience every day walking into school. The love and support is shown not only on paper, but most important in actuality from the team. The team continues to be unmatched from afar, especially with productive communication. Not every day is perfect or perfect for my child, but being able to work alongside a team and brainstorm with everyone makes for an amazing environment. And lastly, our most important group, our students. A 3rd grader said, I love flexible seating. I especially love the standing desk with the wobbly board to stand on. 5th grader said, I have to say it's been a really good start. There have been a lot of fun things we've gotten to do. We have a great playground, and our teacher lets us do fun things to get to know each other better. A kindergartner said, school is fun. I love my teacher. We get to play games and we get to read. Another first grader said, my teacher is kind because she doesn't want to get people in trouble. I love her. And lastly, student said, this is one of our 3rd graders in our dual language class. I like Hawksview because I have a lot of friends here. My teacher is really nice. She makes learning fun, and I think she really cares about our class. I'm glad I go to Hawksview. Reading through these comments over the last several days had provided me with a sense of gratitude. I'm grateful for our staff at Hawksview, our families, and most of all, our students. As one bulletin board in our school reads, they are the reason we smile every day. It has been a great start to the school year, and thanks for letting me share a little bit of our Hawksview perspective. Oh, now I'm going to introduce you to Miranda Johnson at Ridges.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon, Chair Hawkins, Board of Directors. It's an honor to be here tonight to share with you about our first days of school at Ridges. This has been my 6th start to the school year in my role as principal at Ridges, and I can honestly say that this start of the year has been the most uneventful of my career. In the first weeks of school, we had 0 unplanned fire alarms, no broken arms, no Zoom classes, no budget concerns, and 0 field trips canceled due to air quality. In fact, our biggest unplanned events of those first weeks were some quote unquote retired staff members surprising us by coming back to share this year with us again, and a sprinkler system that kept going off unexpectedly, showering our parents at pickup and creating an enticing splash pad recess option for some of our youngest Ridges learners. In all seriousness, though, this uneventful start to the year has been a welcomed change. I stood before you 3 years ago, and I vowed that I would never again take for granted the little things in education. I meant that then, and I stand by it now. I am forever grateful for the opportunity to be together in person on our amazing school campus with the best students, staff, and families around. This year is a year of celebration for our district, and during these first few weeks, I have been thoughtful about watching for meaningful things to celebrate. As I was joining a particular grade level for lunch last week, it occurred to me that oftentimes those things to celebrate are the things that we don't even notice in the moment. This grade level has given our staff a lot of learning opportunities over the years. And as I watched them eating lunch and visiting with their friends, I was reminded of the 1 million little things that make up the bigger celebrations in the work we do every single day. It's the countless parent phone calls, the collaboration, the extra hours, the time spent listening and learning, the extra time invested into trying new things, and then trying again when those things don't work. It's time spent collecting data and never giving up. It's the moments that, even though we are exhausted, we continue to do the very best that we can. The celebration lies in the payoff that sometimes in this work, we don't always get to see firsthand. As I watched that group of students, I personally celebrated many things. That student that has found a group of friends when they believed that they never would. The student that can successfully eat lunch at a table with their same peers, despite having sensory concerns about the smells of others' food, just because someone took the time to learn and support their specific needs. It's looking at a cafeteria full of students and realizing that our staff has special connections and relationships with so many of their parents and families. It's seeing students including one another in thoughtful conversations, helping one another, and treating each other with respect. It's watching as they leave for recess and trusting that these students can make good choices on the playground outside because you know that our team has given them the skills they need to make that possible. It's realizing that while the days at times seem oh so very long, the years are short, and the work we do, whether we see it in the moment or not, truly matters. While I'm honored to have a chance to summarize the first few days of school, to be honest, it's the next 157 days that I'm most excited about. It's the 157 days to teach our students something new and help them get excited about learning. It's the 157 opportunities to serve them lunch and watch them interact in meaningful ways with each other. Actually, that one's 154 because we don't serve lunch on 3 school days. The 157 days to welcome our students to schools with smiles on the buses and at the crosswalk and at the doors, and to share those same smiles no matter how tired we are at the end of the day when they leave for home. And it's the 157 days to care about, inspire, support, and love on our kids in a way that only those in this profession can truly do. The work we do here in Sherwood matters, and that to me is the most important thing to celebrate during these first few weeks of school. From the smallest details to the largest accomplishment, each person in this room, in our district, and in our school plays an important role in making the lives of our students better. I will forever be grateful for the opportunity to be even a small part of that work, and I look forward to celebrating every day this school year because each day truly is worth celebrating. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Wilkinson to share some updates about Middleton.
Good evening, Superintendent Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, and Board of Directors. I'm excited to share with you, I feel so tall, about the first days back at Middleton. We kicked off in-service week in a staff meeting together with all of our certified and classified staff. And this was a really meaningful time to reconnect, set some goals, and plan for the year. It's not often that we get to gather our whole staff together like that. And you could really just feel the sense of community and the pride for our school in the room. It was really special. Some of you might have witnessed this sense of pride that we have for our school at the rally when each school or department was asked to stand and be recognized, and we just went crazy. I don't know if you guys remember how loud we were, but and some people afterward asked me if we planned that, and no, we didn't plan that. I'm seriously, this is going to sound sarcastic, but we're really just that excited. I think people at Middleton love working at Middleton. We were really excited for the school year to start, and so that was just really genuine. But that's an example of the climate, I think, at Middleton and the staff. There were so many moments like this over the first week of school and during in-service week that I was just really overcome with gratitude. And I know someone else talked about that tonight too, but just gratitude for a staff that cares really deeply about their students. I mean, I feel that every day when I'm in the building. If you've ever been to our front office, you only have to be there like 5 seconds and you feel that. Gratitude for a community that values high quality education and supported our levy. I mean, that was huge this year. We were able to retain teachers that multiple times this week, I thought, I'm so glad that we have this teacher here and we could keep her. She is exactly the right teacher for this student, and our IAs and our STEM program and all of those things that are so important. Gratitude for the partnership with our families, and most importantly, gratitude for our awesome Middleton students. Although in-service week is always valuable, of course, the highlight is when school starts and we get to see students again. The return of students breathes life back into the building, and you just feel that energy and excitement on those first days of school. Kids are eager to see their new teacher, to reconnect with old friends, and of course, to try out all their super cool new school supplies. It's a time of fresh starts and new beginnings. And this year, more than ever, as others have said, it really felt different and it felt special. We welcomed several new students to Middleton this year also, and joining a new school can be an overwhelming or intimidating experience. But I'm so proud to report that our Middleton students just embraced the new kids with open arms right away. An example of this is in the cafeteria in the morning, we gather the kids between when they arrive and they go down to classrooms. And the first day of kindergarten, the kindergartners are walking in there, they're looking a little nervous. And one of our first graders walked right over to a kind of an uncertain looking kindergartner and probably mimicking what she's seen an adult do, puts her hands on her knees and she goes, "Good morning. Is it your first day of school? Are you new here?" And the kindergartner's like just nods, and she reached out her hand and she said, "Well, I'm in first grade. You're going to love it here. Why don't you come with me over here? My sister's in kindergarten too, and it's her first day. Why don't you sit down with her?" And just that level of like compassion and empathy I saw over and over throughout the week. And it was really just special. And that girl ended up having a great first day of school. Another example took place also on the first lunch of the first day. I was kind of walking around the cafeteria and checking in with our new students. And I was really pleased to see that every single one of them was sitting with a classmate and chatting and smiling. And when I walked over to one of our second grade students, I said, "How are things going?" And she said, "Great. I made a new friend. This is my best friend." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. What's her name?" And she goes, and she looks at her and she goes, "Oh, I didn't ask." And so we're still working on what best friend means, but we are building some great connections in the first week. And the first few weeks have just been full of joy, laughter, and learning. And we've received overwhelmingly positive feedback. We received an email from a family actually today with their appreciation for staff. And they said, "We were just talking about how this level of attention was unheard of when we were in elementary school, but that's what makes Middleton the amazing school that it is." But my favorite review of the first weeks of school was at the end of the first day of school from a kindergartner when he exclaimed, "Today was the best day of my entire life." So no big deal. We just have to make every day the best day of his entire life, but we're up for the challenge. We have an amazing staff. It's been an awesome start to the school year, and we're just looking forward to the rest of the year. And with that, I'd like to introduce the amazing, the also beautiful Patrick Shakaro from Archer Glen.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson. I appreciate that. I hope to hear that more in the future as well. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Shakaro. I'm the principal of Archer Glen. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about the start of our year. It's great to hear from my colleagues across the district. It sounds like a fun and joyful start of the school year, and I hope to add to that with my sharing. As you know, the beginning of the year is a very special time. We welcome new staff and new students, new teachers for those students, new schedules, new instructional materials, new board members. Welcome. It's also a time where we get to reconnect after a summer away. At Archer Glen, this has meant a few different things. First, I'd like to thank our incredible PAC and our newly elected PAC leaders, Brandis and Kelly, for hosting a barbecue on the playground at our meet and greet event before the first day of school. The weather was perfect. The food was great, but most importantly, the company was excellent. Seeing so many of our families together sharing a meal was such a great way to kick off the school year. The staff, of course, has gotten back together again, first at in-service week, but also at our first regular staff meeting just this last week, which I might start referring to as our snacks meeting, where important information is optional, but the snacks are mandatory. As we often do, we took some time at the top to share a little bit of gratitude for each other. These might be small but meaningful acts of kindness and selflessness, but are just as often a recognition of efforts that are somehow both extraordinary and yet everyday occurrences. I would like to specifically thank our special education team, our learning specialists, Debbie and Tyler, Jessica as well, and our incredible IA team, Tammy, Lindsay, Chris, Heather, and Christina. You have demonstrated the type of selfless leadership that makes Archer Glen a very special place. And it's in moments like a snacks meeting where I am reminded that acts of leadership come in all different forms and yet have a common purpose. Leadership is loving the community in which we are a part and acting in their best interest. More simply, it's us before me. Archer Glen is blessed to have leaders throughout our programs who see themselves as a part of something bigger than themselves. And through these small but meaningful acts of leadership, they contribute to building and sustaining a community and a culture where each of its members are in turn cared for. For our students, I'm excited to report that we had a successful school-wide assembly kickoff this last week for our fun run. We continued with an approach we started this last spring where we invite our Eagle ambassadors, our fifth grade leadership students, to MC the event. We met with the group at lunch, went over their roles and lines, and sent them on their way to an evening of, I'm sure, anxious overthinking. It is public speaking after all. The nerves the next morning were palpable. And as the saying goes, if you never do what you've never done, then you'll never become more than you are today. I'm very proud of our Eagle ambassadors for doing something that's scary for a lot of us, and that's getting up on a stage and speaking in front of their peers. I'm happy to report that they all did great. I would also like to give a big thanks to our staff for participating in the Fun Run kickoff video, and a special thanks to Pack Dad Ron for putting it all together. Poor acting has never been so well hidden by good editing. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Ron. The beginning of the year is also a special time because it gives us our first opportunity to take action on all the planning and preparation that happens over the summer. And it's in this contrast from the last days of summer to the first days of school that I'd like to offer a final reflection. Because summer is just so very different. And it's not just in schedules and tempo, but in the type of work that we take on to support our students. It's preparing for the upcoming year, building schedules, forming teams, setting big goals, making plans to achieve those goals. And then the first day of school arrives. And boy, does it. It goes from let's get ready to ready or not. Preparation becomes performance, plans become reality, and all the things that we do to equip ourselves and our staff to be in the right place at the right time with the right skills and the right mindset to make a difference suddenly become very real. My real moment was meeting a new kindergartner for the first time. It was just after arrival. The new kindergarten class was making their way down the hallway in what kind of looked like a line, or at least maybe a line of best fit if you take out the outliers. That's a math joke. You can ask Gary about it after the meeting. She was in the back, quietly crying, a few steps behind her classmates. She took my hand and we walked down to her new class. I learned later that she learned some of her first English words that day. It was her first day in a new school, in a new country, and with a new language. It's moments like that that brings everything into focus. All the emails, the newsletters, the meetings, the hiring, the discussions, the decisions, it's all to make us ready for moments like that. My first draft of this reflection, I was planning on talking about the relationship between presence and impact. This is a lesson of Jeremy Lyon. How the answer to impact, as complicated as it always is, always includes presence. To be where the learning is happening, to be amongst our students and our community, to listen and learn from each other for the purpose of having a greater impact for our students. And I believe in that. But instead, I'd like to end by sharing that there is another feeling that sits alongside impact, and it's the feeling of gratitude. And the feeling that I am so honored to have been a part of that moment with our new kindergartner. It's going to be a good year, and I'm honored to be a part of that as well. On behalf of my colleagues, nicely done, by the way, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I mean, it is us that really have the gratitude for you guys leading these buildings. It's a tremendous responsibility. It's always so fun to hear about how the school years are going or the school years are starting for you guys. It's really fun if you get the opportunity to be around the building those first couple of days. Schools are just really incredible places. So thank you for being here tonight and sharing with us your experiences. We will now turn over to board reports, and they're probably not going to be as exciting as your reports, but we'll do our best. So Dr. Lyon, you can kick us off.
Thank you. And I would just like to say thank you to all the leaders of this district, and the reports that you just received are so incredible, meaningful to kind of all the work that we do. And I think I underestimated the power of putting forth this idea of gratitude and celebration at a moment where we really genuinely can as a community and as a school district. And I think it's infectious, and I think that it is based on trust and respect and building with one another the what can be within our school district. And I love it. And I am very genuinely filled with gratitude about getting to work with all of you and see this thing really go forward. And of course, you cannot underestimate the power of what this community did to make that happen, and all of the pieces in place that make it so incredibly impactful for our kids would not be there without the support of our community. So we thank everyone for that very deeply. We worked very hard with the city of Sherwood to get that second SRO in place. That was a year-long lift that was just full of a commitment to that partnership, a commitment by our school board to make it happen, by our police chief. And that is just an example and an exemplar of wanting something and just playing through all the obstacles. And the real obstacle was they were just didn't have a pipeline of officers in training to have the manpower. And we finally got there. We can't wait for October 2nd for Officer Newman to start. We've got another great partnership going with the city. They held a work session last night to kind of talk and craft what they'd like to see in our student advisory group. And we are very excited to join. I am working directly with the city manager on our youth and local government student advisory group. And the nice thing there is that it is going to be 16 Sherwood High School kids, 4 per grade level, but we opened it up to the city council to appoint 4 at-large high school students within the community that they will pick and join the group. So it's really pretty exciting and a joint partnership. I am super excited to talk about this one. We have our Director of Nutrition Services, Gia Saporito, here, who has brought new ideas, new energy to everything that we're doing regarding food preparation. And I was just delighted to learn that we really have accomplished this farm to school connection. And we have a relationship with Our Table Food Co-op, which is just 2 miles from here, a certified organic grower. And through grants, we are buying local grown produce and serving them in our cafeterias. We're serving watermelons and Italian plums and strawberries and all kinds of things that is just super exciting, both from that partnership aspect of supporting a local entity, which is always key, but also the payoff for learning about food and helping students understand the importance of nutrition. And as Gia and I have talked about, we are just scratching the surface on some of the ideas and things that we want to do to improve quality, improve offerings and expanding things for our students. And, we talk about the educational component of students, but they have to be well fed and they have to have that energy and that input, and the opportunities that we have there are really exciting. So Gia, thank you for making that happen. That's really, really exciting. The last thing I'll say is we continue to work on the traffic in and around the district at Sherwood High School. We met with Officer O'Loughlin and talked about a new plan that actually things have calmed down pretty well. Our transportation director, Sandy Miller, has done a really good job analyzing the routes. Of course, we know we now have some road closures in Sherwood that are creating quite a interesting system, but she is very adaptable. And I really love that. It's what's necessary to make it all happen. And so we are off to a really good start of the school year, thanks to everyone who is working straight in line to help students be successful in our school. So thank you.
Thank you. Those are some exciting updates. Up next, we have our ASB representative, Sabrina Flowers. If you'd like to share with us, it's your turn.
Thank you. Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyons, and Board of Directors, thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be the ASB representative this year. There's a lot, so I'm just going to get going. Our athletics have had a great start this year. Our football team is 3-0 right now, and we are super pleased with the culture that our school has built around that team. We've worked with cheer and dance to give out student section swag to help encourage people to go. We've also started to have a fan of the week and athlete of the week. So we've been starting that up. Volleyball has been doing really good in league so far, and girls soccer has had a good kickoff to the year. They had a tough preseason, but they're heading into league now, and boys soccer has been cruising through this year. Cross country has run super well this year, and they have a big invitational this Saturday. And our cheer and dance teams both have competitions coming up in the winter, but as leadership, we've been working super closely with them. So it's been super fun. And we're super proud of our fall teams right now. We also have a new director for our musicals, Joe Dalton. He's super excited to get started, and auditions are coming up soon for Sherwood Shorts, which is something new, I believe, at the high school. Our performing arts director, she chose a performer of the week, and that's Tala Dabebne. And there will be more performing arts updates when they pick up more throughout the school year. This Saturday, we have our first big leadership event, is our Powder Puff tournament. And it'll be from 1 to 3, and we have a tailgate open to everybody in the community from 1:30 to 3. So please feel free to come, and then games start at 3 and well, hopefully end at 6. We also, next week is our homecoming week. It's a full week of festivities. So on Monday, our panel of judges will start voting on our lip sync videos that we've been working on all month, and our hall deck, which we will be doing this Saturday. And then next Friday, we have the homecoming parade that goes throughout Sherwood, and that's super open to the community and a super great way for us to connect with everybody in all the schools. That starts at 4, and we'd love if everybody could come. That would be super fun. And in the past years, we've used the Sparrow organization to support members of our community. With some changes in that program, we are having trouble finding a person to support, so we may be looking elsewhere to find a cause to raise money for. Right now, we are looking into Kids Making Miracles or a Make-A-Wish kid. After next week, in October, our next event is the blood drive on October 10th. We'd love any and all volunteers. A week after that, we have our club week and are super excited to represent our groups at SHS. And immediately after that is our Cancer Awareness Week. So that's all I have.
That is a lot. You guys are very busy with sports and activities. I know I'm excited for homecoming. I love the parade. In fact, Dr. Lyon wandered down to it last year after being new here and was like, what is this? I'm like, it's our homecoming parade. The entire town's here. And I had tons of friends comment, they're like, is that our new superintendent just hanging out at homecoming? I'm like, yes. So it's always a very fun, the whole week is incredibly fun, but you guys have a lot going on. So thank you for being here and giving us all those updates. All right, up next, we're going to have Kyler Pace join us from SEA. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Dr. Lyon, Chair Hawkins, and board directors. My name is Kyler Pace, and I'm here tonight as the president of the Sherwood Education Association. And I'll be joining you occasionally to give you updates from our teacher perspective of what's been going on around the district. And it is really nice, as others have said, to be here in what is finally a normal start to a school year. I was thinking back, fall of 2019 would have been our last, what we would call normal school year, that we weren't having conversations about COVID and about the budget. So because of that, it really has felt like teacher morale this year. There is a difference in how people are feeling at the start of the year without any of those kind of pressures in place for us. But as you know, there is still a lot happening all around the district, and all of our different levels have a lot of really great things going on. And tonight I wanted to focus my report on one particular area that I find of importance, and that is reading literacy at the elementary level. I believe that we are in the midst of what's probably the most transformational shift in education that I've seen in my career, especially when it comes to early childhood literacy. You may have seen articles in local newspapers. If you're a podcaster and listen to podcasts, there's a popular podcast that has received a lot of attention lately in this area. And educators across the country are having conversations around literacy and moving towards a framework that is supported by vast bodies of research that have demonstrated how to best help children learn to read. And this is what's commonly referred to as the science of reading. And you heard that mentioned earlier tonight in the SPED department presentation about something that they're also focusing on as well. State legislators have also established early literacy as a top priority. And in the last legislative session, they passed House Bill 3198, and they have provided funding earmarked that is going to go directly towards early childhood literacy. One way that Sherwood has begun to make this shift is by offering a training program called LETTERS. LETTERS is an acronym that stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. It's a comprehensive professional development program designed to provide early childhood and elementary educators with a deep knowledge of literacy and language to be experts in the science of reading. Last year, when the training was first offered, we had 43 elementary teachers sign up to do volume 1 of the training. And this year we have an additional 57 teachers that are participating. And some of those teachers are teachers who already did volume 1 and are moving on to volume 2, which focuses more on vocabulary and comprehension. I want to be clear that the teachers that are participating in LETTERS are volunteering to complete this training on their own time. The program is easily equivalent to graduate level coursework in both the rigor and time commitment that it requires. The publisher estimates that the coursework and classroom application takes between 48 and 60 hours worth of work. And this is a significant amount of time. And we've had a lot of teachers that have chosen to volunteer for the program. There are others who just aren't able to make that time commitment right now. Because of the importance of this training, we need to be working towards solutions that will allow all of our elementary teachers to be fully trained with this program. After completing the training last year myself, I can tell you that it has completely changed my approach and my thinking towards teaching reading, and especially how to help our struggling readers. I think you'll hear similar thoughts from others who have either completed the program or are in the training as well. Because of this learning, it is imperative that we get our current elementary language arts adoption curriculum right this year. We're moving in the right direction, having adopted phonological awareness and phonics curriculum last year for our K2 classrooms. But as you know, the full adoption was postponed to this year. Our teachers who are trained will be eager to implement a new curriculum that complements the learning that we've been doing. And I'm positive that we will see significant and lasting impacts for our students. And finally, I just want to reiterate on a little different note, in the past, SEA and the district have really had a partnership and collaborate and work together, especially over the last years, the budget and COVID and all of that. And we once again are committed to doing that again this year. And we'll see you around, and thank you for your time.
Can I ask a question? If you're allowed to say it, what's the podcast?
What's the what? Oh, the podcast. Oh, the podcast.
Yeah.
It's called Sold a Story. Sold a Story.
Thank you.
It's good. You'll like it.
Thank you for being here tonight and for sharing all of that with us. It's pretty remarkable work. And I know I got to see some of the curriculum, and we even got to watch a little bit of it in action. And so it's really cool to see the teachers teaching in this new way. It's new from what I'm used to seeing, at least. All right, we will go on down the line. Director Thornton, we'll start with you.
Good, thank you. So I think a lot of what everybody's been saying already, I've heard just so many positive things about the beginning of the school year from parents. I can just say, just for those watching at home, having had the privilege to walk the hallways the last few weeks, every bit that you heard is true. It does feel different, I guess, in a good way. Like it feels like that school is back the way we imagined it. The hallways are calm. The students look happy. My personal experiences of riding my bike to with my son to school in the mornings, crossing guards, I got smiles on their faces. That's always to me a kind of a judge. Like, how's the school day been going lately? Has everybody got smiles in the morning or not? And yes, I can report everybody looks very happy and smiling, and even seeing Patrick out there being a crossing guard a couple of times. And I'd say it is going really well, and parents are noticing, and that's appreciated. I got several parents have commented on the new ADA parking and the speed bumps. So, hey, good job with that. That's parents are noticing that as well. I also just noticed in general, I appreciate all the work that teachers do. I know this is a really heavy front loaded time of the year. I know this is the time the OT comes in, and we appreciate it. On a personal front, I did a training today on just as Kylie was talking about the House Bill 3198, the science of reading. Even though I was a teacher for many years, science of reading is a completely new thing. I'd never heard of it, and half the terms in there I didn't know what they were. So it was a good training for me to just learn how that works and kind of understand. I talked to Marlene briefly today just about what the district is doing in regards to that House Bill, and I'm excited to see what happens there. And so that's great. I'm going to leave it short there because I think this meeting's been going really long already, and I appreciate all the work everybody's been doing. Thanks.
All right, Director Mueller.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks for this opportunity. I'll keep it short. I would echo what Matt was saying, and I also appreciate and I'm grateful for the energy and the vibe that's going on at all the schools. I've been in several of the schools just to walk through kind of as a spy and notice this. I think the energy is age appropriate for elementary, middle, and high. They're all going to be slightly different, which is to be expected. And but very very positive. The personal reflection for me is the two football games that were mentioned earlier that I attend as an observer, kind of to corral my girls. It is really impressive. That's all I'll say. And the band, I was never a band person, but they are incredible. That band and that cheer and dance, they're crazy. And Sweet Caroline, I just wait for that one every time. And it's wonderful. The SPED week this week, I was fortunate enough to go on the field trip. Again, amazing, just amazing. So I think we're off to the right start. I know we're off to the right start, and I'm so happy to see a more normal year. Thank you very much.
All right, Director Carson.
Well, this is a much different start to my year than last year when I came in November. So this is much better. It's a whirlwind September. Things are going well. My gauge on how well it's going is a new 9th and 6th grader. So those are some big years. And I'm happy to report the sixth grader loved sixth grade after a rocky start on the bus and some cursing older kids on the that she was appalled by and texted me from the bus and said, "Mom, they're cussing." And then the ninth grader says, "Yeah, it's cool." So that's a compliment right there. So other than that, back to school night at the middle school, I thought was fantastic. I thought the casualness of that and how it was ran, I think you get more attendance that way. And everyone felt like they got to talk to every teacher. I got to talk to all the teachers I wanted to, and it was a great format for that. And I hope it continues. The sped tour we got to go on this week, so cool, like just the coolest. And I hope that everyone gets a chance to, have a lens into that program, even if you don't have a child in that department. It's just a really cool offering that we provide. And I think we do it very, very well. So hats off to that department. That was an awesome tour. I had the chance to go with Dr. Lyon and Director Hawkins to the city council work session a couple of weeks ago regarding Sherwood West, and kind of sit in on that and kind of just hear and see how that's going. And I think there's a lot of work to continue in that realm, but we definitely have our ear to the ground on that and will continue to be involved in that. So thank you.
Director Thorne. Just to echo a lot of what's already been said, huge thank you to the teachers and the staff for making this a seamless start to the school year. Almost seamless, but pretty great. It's great to see all the parent engagement outreach that's been happening. I know that parents really appreciate that. They really do want to be involved, and the communications that have been going out, it's just, you can feel the sense of community. You really can, between the district and the parents, and that's a great feeling. Big thank you to the coaches as well. I know their staff, but also big thank you to the coaches. They're doing great. The teams are doing great. I love going to the football games. All the energy there is so much fun, and the band is fantastic. They really keep it going. I'm disappointed to see the student section rankings. That is not fair. I do not agree with that at all. We have the best student section, and it's just so fun watching all you guys, and I don't know, something's going on there. We got to fix that, because I don't agree with those rankings. We're number one for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to report for tonight. So thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you guys. I feel like going last is the worst because I don't really have anything fresh to say. This is the first year that I have a kid in elementary, middle, and high, which is an interesting life choice that I made. But it gives me perspective of all the different levels, and I can honestly see like the different emails coming in and newsletters from all those different levels and all the opportunities there really are to partner with families, and all the back to school nights. And it's really cool, even at the high school. I know, Mr. Mitchell, in your email, it says like, let us know if you feel like a teacher is doing something cool or a staff member is doing something cool. Let us know. It's still hard for me to get my high schooler to tell me anything about his day, but as soon as he does, I'm going to be sure to hit the button, because I'm like, that is just such a cool new tool to share out good things that your staff is doing. And so I love seeing that. We have back to school night tomorrow at the elementary school, and I don't even have to look at the newsletter really for it, because my daughter comes home at first grade and tells me everything about it. So clearly it's being communicated very well to her. And again, the city meeting was a fun experience. I have not gone to as many of those as I'd like to. It's hard to prioritize that on top of these meetings as well. It was an interesting experience. We kept talking about how it was weird to sit in the back and not get to like give any feedback. So that was strange, but it was really nice to be in the loop about everything the city is talking about. We really want to work hard to partner with them. They have been good partners to us, and so we want to be educated about how things moving forward affect them as well as they affect our school district. So that is an honest effort that I think all of us are making to stay in connection with that. With that being said, I'm just excited about the school year. I think it's awesome to have a great year. It's got to be better. It's got to be better than last year. So we are excited to get this year going. We have no public comment for this evening. So we normally would do that at this point in the meeting, but there is no comment submitted at this point in time that pertains to the agenda. So we will move right along. I will not thank you for sharing your thoughts since nobody shared any thoughts with us this evening. But the next item we will get to is our presentation with Steve Emmert and Marlene Carroll, talking about the new staff academy and our staff in service week. Thanks for being here. And if any of you guys need to take off, of course, you are always able to do so. Make sure we get it right.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, Board, and Sabrina. Thank you for being here. So we have the privilege tonight of just sharing a little bit, and we'll be brief, but a little bit about how the year started. So every year before in-service week, we bring our new staff into what we call New Staff Academy. And we spend a couple of days, and our hope is always to provide them tools to really hit the ground running when the rest of the staff starts their in-service week. So on Monday, August 21st, 42 of our new staff members arrived bright and early and listened to Dr. Lyon kick us off and give them a little bit of a history of Sherwood, where we've been over the last year, really the last couple of years. And he was able to share also just about the education levy that we passed and the fact that it prevented us from having to do some major staff reductions. We got to keep, our staff members, and it was a really cool way to welcome them. It's one of my favorite days out of the year. Our administrators do an incredible job of hiring. And so every year we just get this amazing group of people who are excited to start their careers in Sherwood. After that, Jody Jacobs, who is part of our HR department, and Patina Fiken, who's our OSEA president, spent a few hours with our classified staff, and SEA president Kyler, and I spent a few hours with our certified staff. And we covered topics such as benefits. We covered what we consider to be really important pieces of our collective bargaining agreements, things that all of them should know. We talked a bit about what performance evaluation looks like in Sherwood. That always seems to be fear for new staff members because they have those probationary years at the beginning. So we talk a little bit about that. And then probably most importantly, we have discovered the need to really spend time talking about social media, common sense use of social media, and how it fits into really ethical behavior. And I scare them on purpose just a little bit because I want them to really take that part seriously. And then they share stories, and we have a good conversation about that. Following that, we host them for lunch, and we invite our district leaders, our administrators in the building, in the district office, and their mentors to really be able to sit and have a meal and interact with them. And we have found that that's a pretty cool way for them to feel welcomed here in the district. Following that, they get to go to their buildings and spend the rest of the day with their mentors. And, when I survey our new staff every year, that always ends up being as their number one thing. The time they spend with their mentors getting to implement what they heard that morning and really preparing for the year, I think is a incredibly valuable time for them and something that we want to be able to continue. Later in the week, I pulled in for the first time ever all of our student teachers for this year because we thought, we're also going to scare them just a little bit. We want to make sure they also understand the importance of how to communicate with staff members and with students and how not to communicate, just so that they're starting their career in the right way. But it was a really cool time to get to meet them and spend a little bit of time understanding who they are, hearing their stories, finding out where they're coming from. And I'm excited to get out and watch them teach this year. It's pretty cool too to be able to invest in that next round of teachers in that way. And oftentimes we end up hiring people who have student taught in our district. So the following week, I did survey the staff, and as we've experienced in the past, people are really honest. They give us really great feedback and tell us some things that we can do better. But overall, it's very affirming. It's very positive feedback. And such a good reminder that Sherwood, in spite of the challenges we've had through these past few years, is still a destination district. This is really where people want to be. And I think the new staff we've hired this year are excited to be here. So unless you have questions, day 2 of New Staff Academy was done by Teaching and Learning, and I'll turn it over to Marlene.
All right. Good evening. Oh, thanks. Board of Directors, Dr. Lyon. Okay, so day 2 of New Staff Academy is really focused around teaching and learning goals and the work that has been going on here in Sherwood. And, you know, you have a very limited amount of time to catch up new staff. And we also have to talk about some compliance issues. So we start off our day with our directors focused on the goals and the work ahead around our teaching and learning outcomes. But we also have to spend a little time on some of the legislation that's gone through over the past few years. We are required to train all new staff on Addie's Act, which is suicide prevention, and Aaron's Law, which is child abuse prevention. And so our morning is a little heavy for our new staff during this time, but it's really important information that we want them to have as they go into the classroom here in Sherwood. In addition, then we kind of shift our focus to the power of MTSS and that large initiative that we've been working on for the past couple of years around professional learning communities, really valuing our grade level teams, our teacher collaboration, that agency that teachers have around understanding what the learning target is and aligning their assessments. That leads to the standards-based grading overview, the importance of tiered interventions and, Kyler mentioned a little bit about this with our reading instruction, but giving that whole group reading instruction and then understanding what gaps students have. And so that's a really important part of our work. And then high quality instruction and materials. We kind of go over that with our staff, and we do that by leveraging our instructional coaches in our buildings. And so they come and spend the afternoon for a little while with our new teachers. We really want our new teachers to have their mentor, but also that opportunity to get better and to start that relationship with their instructional coach in their building or coaches in their building. So they can continue to grow and work on the things that they want to work on. And then finally, everyone's most favorite topic is the instructional technology. This time can be it's a lot of information, especially if you've never worked with some of these systems before. So our instructional technology team is great and supports our teachers learning Canvas and Seesaw and Synergy and MTSS Synergy, and really supports that time, teaching them all about the tools that they need to use, learn, to support students and families. And I'm going to move on to in-service week. Sorry about that. And go over a little bit about what we did during in-service week with all of our staffs. This is going to be just a brief overview. But in-service week is really one of the most important times of the year for our teachers. It is one of the only times that all of the district is just focused on professional learning, and they have time in their classrooms, they have time in their colleagues. And so we really value this time. Administrators prepare for this time throughout the summer. And this week can have a really big impact on the way we kick off the year, the culture of the school, and student outcomes. This is our second year getting to kick off the school year with the rally, and we really appreciate that you were all able to attend. That means a lot to our staff to see you there. This is the one moment every school year where we are all together. And so having our board there, having our all of our staff in one space together was really powerful. And we heard a lot about just how great it was, not unlike what Millie was speaking to about the excitement that it brought. So once we kind of do the rally, we start to, our building administrators really and our directors in teaching and learning and student services, they really start to dive into the work of kind of rekindling the passion after the nice long summer break. And they do that in a variety of ways. They set up time in their buildings around like culture and community and building that with staff, while also infusing new learning around taking us to the next level on the initiatives that we're working on. So I want to highlight a couple of key professional learning opportunities that our staff had. So at the high school level, we focused on, as Adam mentioned, increasing attendance, but really talking about professional learning communities and what that collaboration can look like, thinking about how do we improve student outcomes. And then it was a really natural fit to go into standards-based grading. We have a lot of teachers trying standards-based grading for the first time, and they were getting some opportunity to work with teachers who have done it for a while and collaborate and talk about their work, build their blueprints. In addition, we introduced a new component of Synergy called MTSS Synergy, and it is an efficient way for teachers to kind of run with student management. So they are able to do their majors and minors through the Synergy system, and it notifies the principals and the dean of students. And so it's just a much more efficient way to communicate when it comes to student management. And they spend a little bit of time on that. In addition to that, there's always teacher work time during that day, and some of our new adoptions roll out. So our math programs at the middle school and high school, they had time to really learn and dig into that work. The new adoption. Very similar to the high school is the middle school. They also did some sessions around school climate and culture, universal design for learning, which is really reaching all students and finding different access points for students to learn. Again, they had the new adoption around math that they were working on and some new reading interventions as well. The elementary level is always a little unique because elementary teachers have a heavy lift. They have to learn a new adoption. The cycle for them is almost every year because there aren't grade specific content, right? And so not only did we have some social studies from last year. They didn't teach the first unit last year because we were still in the adoption process. So they had to kind of brush up on that and plan for that while their K2 colleagues were also doing training for the Bridge to Reading program and becoming experts in that content area and that new curriculum. And so while they did that, they also learned about MTSS and the equitable grading, data practices, really looking at data with that in mind. And again, we got to introduce that new, more efficient student management system to our elementary colleagues. There's some other exciting things that they worked on. They did some drumming with their music teachers, and then there was teacher work time where our staff really put a lot of effort into getting their classroom ready at every level. They really want that first day and that first week of school to be the best for students. And I think many of you have seen that, and it certainly is true during this week. All right. And with that, do you have any questions for us?
I think I have one for you. You answered the other. I wondered if drumming was like truly drumming, but it was.
Drumming is truly drumming. Our elementary principals, they brought in Congo drumming. No. The, well, the request comes from the principal, so the music teachers brought in drumming, and it was Congo drumming, correct? Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
And
My question was with regards to standards-based grading. You know, we had a lot of input about that last year and we had a lot of conversation about it. And this year, I don't feel like I've received quite as much input from parents. So that would lead me to believe that parents are starting to understand it a little better. Kids are hopefully understanding it a little bit better. I know you guys have made some modifications to the way that we're utilizing it. And so I think for parents that are still having questions, is there an opportunity for them to understand it better and to get their questions answered?
well, at the high school, there's going to be an opportunity on October 3rd at 6:30 and there will be some standards-based grading sessions that will run. We'll also be putting out some communication that the teaching and learning department has worked on. And then we are always encouraging staff to either reach out to Sarah McCusker, our teaching and learning TOSA, who's kind of taking the lead, or not staff, parents, if they, especially if they have multiple students in multiple grades and it's around their like technology and navigating the system. She is a great resource. And then the classroom teacher as well.
And at the middle school level, is there anything planned as of yet?
We hosted a table at back to school night and we don't have the next iteration of that planned yet.
Okay.
We did talk about standardizing some language for teachers to use.
Oh, yes.
To either fall into one of two categories. Either you're trained and using standards-based grading, or you are in training and not using it. And those are the two alternatives. And so I think that clarity at the middle level and the high school as to who is fully implementing it and who is still in training is really critical for our parents to understand, so that that clear division is understood by our parents.
Yeah, we've been working on, and I believe it's finished. We just need to figure out how to publish it exactly, but we've been working on creating that exact list who's been trained and implementing, and including in that will be their domains. So parents can really understand the different categories, and then who is in training as well. So that will be published. We'll work with Christine on exactly the best way to do that.
Yeah.
But
I think that's great. And I think for those of us who are able to share out that information, just so that parents know where to go to get their answers. Certainly we know a lot about it, but we cannot describe the process as well as you guys do. So
sure,
that's really helpful. Thank you.
Will that information that will be posted, will that also include the integration timeline of when there's a full adoption of standards-based grading through the high school up through core and electives and everything?
the list currently doesn't have that, but we certainly could.
Just to give parents
Yeah.
an idea of
Mhm.
when this is final and fully
Absolutely.
implemented. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
If there's no other questions, thank you guys. We appreciate it. And let's see, we're gonna have Mr. Bennett join us up next to discuss with us our budget committee vacancies. Thank you, guys. I know. We used to see you all the time. Here you are.
Less often now. Good evening, Superintendent Lyon, Board of Directors. As you know, our budget committee serves an important process in the district. The board and 5 citizen budget committee members actually approve the budget before it's ultimately adopted by the board sometime later. Our budget committee members each serve 3-year terms, and we have 2 of those positions open right now, position 1 and position 4, which were filled by Nicole Brutowski and Ryan Dunlap. We plan to fill those earlier this year than we have in past years. It's part of the changes we talked about. We talked about the strategic plan. One is bringing the budget committee into the fiscal process much earlier in the year, where traditionally our first meeting has been in February. We're going to bring them in for a fiscal update in November, just to start bringing orientation around the fiscal state of the district. So instead of opening these later in the year, we want to open them in September and ask the board to appoint those positions at the October meeting, so we can then invite the budget committee members, including the new budget committee, to the November meeting for the fiscal update. So to do that, applications are currently available. The application is actually linked to this summary. Interested applicants need to turn in their applications by October 11th, and then we'll go through the process on the 18th to appoint 2 new budget committee members and be all set to go for the November meeting. Any questions about that, or Christine, anything to add?
I just want to add that the fillable PDF version of the application is, as of today, also available on the budget committee website.
Excellent. So if anybody out there knows of people who would make great budget committee members, we would love for you to encourage them to apply. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. And next up, we have Marlene Carroll and Amanda Hollenberg to discuss with us the library material selection guidelines that they have been working on.
All right. Thank you, Board of Directors. Dr. Lyon. Okay. All right, tonight we're going to share a little bit. This is like part 2 of a previous conversation around the reconsideration committee. And we're going to talk a little bit, we'll dive deep into a portion of that meeting where we talk about the library materials selection guidelines and that framework. So we'll talk a little bit about the purpose. We'll talk a little bit about what category this falls under. And then Amanda's going to go into a pretty deep dive into the selection process and kind of some of the further work that we're going to have to do with our media centers. Okay. So our steering committee really worked hard to develop this process, and the purpose of this process is to really determine, what are our selection guidelines for our library materials or our materials in our media center, and we need to ensure that we follow board policy and we follow law, but we also have to determine that our process prevents discrimination of all students, including protected groups. And we want to make sure that our guidance is consistent, that it provides consistency, whether you're an elementary media center educational coordinator or a high school media center educational coordinator. So we had a bunch of different perspectives on that team to ensure that it would work for different levels. And then finally incorporates multiple Sherwood School District staff to vet the book choices. We heard that that was a necessary component from the school board and our community. And so we wanted to ensure that's part of the process. As a reminder, it's always important to note that this selection criteria is different than instructional materials that we go through like a more formal adoption. And so, independent reading is just the reading that students choose their own books. They're not required to read any specific title from the classroom library or the media center, nor are they required to check out the library books. And then the required reading is what we kind of go through that longer process with. It's the district process for instructional materials approval. And that's different. It's required for every student within the classroom without self-selection. That means they don't necessarily get to choose all the time. And these materials are really chosen for the students based off the expertise of the teachers, not by the students. And with that brief introduction, I'm just going to turn it over to Amanda, Ms. Hollenberg, and she's going to kind of take you step by step through the process.
Thank you, Dr. Lyon, Board Chair Hawkins, school board members, for the time to come back and talk a little bit more about this process. Before I dive into the meat and potatoes, I want to remind all of you that this work was comprised of a steering committee that began meeting last July, and it had representatives from all of our media coordinators, different levels. It also included local librarians, state librarians, and then myself and or Marlene would partner with conference calls with other local school districts to hear their perspectives and their learnings and get guidance of what they have learned and the best practice. So we've been really fortunate to build these guidelines and our full process with some of the top gold standard people in this business. As you know, we do not have a district librarian. And so it's been very important for us to partner with our city librarians and then the state and other neighboring districts that do have librarians. You should have in your board packet the library selection material guidelines. Before I begin into more of the detail, there's some key terms that I want to make sure that you all understand. First, the Media Center Educational Coordinator. That is the person who is in the library at this point in time. And that was a transition that was made back in 2012, 2013, and that currently is a classified employee. In addition, intellectual freedom, that was something that Marlene had shared in our last board presentation, but just a reminder that all students should have access to age-appropriate and diverse collections in a public institute. And then the last thing you'll hear me talk about is professional reviews, specifically SLJ, which is the Library School of Journal, and TWF, and that's on our flow chart, and that's tidal wave follett. Those two particular professional reviews have been shared to us as the gold standard of the two sites at the minimum that you want to make sure you're checking before purchasing a book. SLJ is comprised of over 600 librarians, or people with a degree of media science. And so they are the ones that are writing all of the reviews. And that is where we are getting our information of if this book is age appropriate or not. So let's go into the process. So we have got a book in the library. The flow chart that we have here, I'm going to say book, but I want to make sure and remind you that it can be a variety of materials. It could be magazines, it could be graphic novels. And so just keep that in mind, and also know that this is the process that we go through for choice or independent reading books. This is not our adoption. This is not our required materials. This is strictly the books and materials that we are going to house on the shelves in our media centers for our kids to choose to check out. So we get a new material and or we want to get a new material, whether it's going to be a purchased item or sometimes we get a donated item. And the first step is the media coordinator confirms the book meets the guidelines of the instruction and the collection development criteria. And that is detailed on the handout that you have. If it does meet the requirements, then we would then look at the two professional reviews sites for their professional opinions of where this book should be housed and what it brings to the literature for that grade level or that content area. I think it's sometimes tricky with this stuff because it's not black and white in the sense of you have these committees and you have these reviews, and people often want to know, like, hey, what's an exclusion criteria? And our exclusion criteria would be, we would not purchase something if it's not age appropriate. We would not purchase something or allow something to remain once we are aware in a spot that is not age appropriate. Beyond that, we trust the people that are making these reviews from Tidal Wave Follett or the School Library Journal, just like we would if we were to go to a movie and you see a movie and it's rated PG. They have different agencies and companies that come up with this rating system, and then that's how it's put on the movie. And you go there and you entrust, yep, it's going to be PG and there's not going to be a lot of profanity or whatnot because I trust that. It's no different than this with the books, except for this has over 600 professionals that are experts and trained in making these decisions. And so that is what we are relying on and basing our information on when moving forward. Then after we believe that, yep, it does meet our criteria, we've got enough reviews from these 2 sites that say yes. We then we being the media coordinator, would then take the book to the next level. And this is a new thing that we've added in this process because this wasn't done before. We then would take the book or the list of books, and Teaching and Learning has created a form so we can track everything that's going to be a new title potentially. And then those books are then taken to an elementary PLC that meets once a month, that is also supported with Teaching and Learning, or they take it to their school site team, which would include an administrator and then potentially an instructional coach. At that point in time, that group of people would then look at the book, confirm that it has been vetted, that it meets our criteria, it follows board policy. And then at that point in time, we would approve it, we would purchase it, and then we would add it to our collection. If at the larger group where the book is going to be vetted, if there is a discrepancy or if there is a concern or if there is a, hey, we don't feel like this is meeting board policy, let's go double check these reviews. Then that might happen. And then it could potentially go to a not approved and then it's stopped. Then it's not purchased or discarded. The same thing would be happening if it was a donated item. So it would go to the media coordinator. They would confirm that it meets the criteria of 2.0 and 2.2. If it does, then it would go to the next group. And then whether it's the site team or not, and then if it is approved, then it would be housed. I think something that's really important to share is the tricky part of this is we've got the dance that we talked about last time of making sure that we've got diverse collections and that we've got a vast collection in our library that's up to date. And what we are leaning on is these professional reviews. And we know that prior to this work and the steering committee and the ask of this board last year, a lot of these decisions were being made in an isolation. And the work that has come out of the steering committee and this outline that you are seeing has added many layers based on a lot of research. And I think that it ensures that we are going to be purchasing books or receiving books, and they will follow our board policy and our selection guidelines if they are put on the shelves. I think something also that's really important in this work is there will be fall training every single fall with the media coordinators and someone from Teaching and Learning to go over selection guidelines, board policy. We will set up the PLC meetings. We also, and we already have begun to have monthly PLC meetings with Teaching and Learning and our media coordinators. And we've got lists already started and books that they're wanting to buy. We will have monthly site meetings at the schools in between. If some of the media coordinators were concerned about the time, like sometimes the teacher's like, hey, I really need these set of books, and they don't want to wait for the PLC with us. And so that's why we've got the option for the site team with the admin and and the coach, and everybody has been trained on this process. And all of the media coordinators have the sheet that will outline all of the steps, and you can't purchase a book until it's been given or gone through all of the steps that I've outlined here. And then teaching and learning will continue to have meetings with local and state librarians. I think I shared with you, this was a lot of new learning for me when I started this work last summer. And we've developed, a whole teaching and learning team has developed a lot of really great relationships with these partners, and we will continue to meet with them. And as always, we will revise and revisit our guidelines and processes as needed. Question.
I have several.
Great.
And I really wanted to polish them and put them together neatly, but I honestly don't think I can.
That's okay.
Because they're just not neat, nice questions. And I want to ask them honestly.
Yeah.
And I know I've spoken to Marlene and talked to her through some of them and said, you know, anyways, didn't get me any closer to a better polished response. But I don't want to dilute the two things, because I know on one hand, we have a review process for things that are already here. And this is talking about library selection materials. I understand the distinction.
Okay.
I feel like, just me personally as a board member, and I'm slightly more passionate about this part of the process than I am about the review process.
Okay.
For me, I think we've made really good strides towards that process. And I've been in parts of those conversations, and I'm incredibly grateful of that work. My hang up with that process is it's still, the onus is on the parent to hear from their student, have those, which I'm not saying the onus shouldn't be on the parent, but it does require a lot of work on behalf of a parent to even begin to have a conversation about removing a particular book.
Mhm.
So I feel like my role as the school board is to be more concerned about what we're bringing into the schools for all of our students. And I shared with Marlene, you know, I don't even really think about this so much selfishly with my own kids, because mine aren't really reading for fun. I wish they were. Mine aren't going to the library and checking out books. I really think about this from the standpoint of my job is to hear from the community and do what I think is best for all kids.
Mhm.
And so for me, this process is problematic. I know a lot of it's new.
Mhm.
So I guess one of my first questions is, if this is our new process, are we to believe that all of the books we have currently in the library have been back checked against this standard and like rating? Or is that just for things that are new?
Well, any new title is going to go through all of these steps.
But the things we currently have
Prior
not.
to this, all of the books should have followed board policy.
So for me, that's tricky too, because like the board policy that's referenced here is really more set up to be about instruction curriculum.
Mhm.
And this board policy actually talks more about having consultation with parents and citizens than it does about staff input, which I know kind of sounds backwards and silly, but I did not write this policy.
Mhm.
But it says that it will be with professional personnel in consultation with parents and citizens. And when I hear about the steering committee of who discusses these books, parents are not a part of that steering committee. It is just media people, media, not really even experts in this field, because most of these people, as we've identified, are not experts in this field. So I feel like there's a lot of holes in this being something that parents can rely on.
Mhm.
For me too, and I don't want to continuously talk about the one book that's under review, but in all honesty, I don't have experience
Mhm.
with several other books. I even said to Marlene, I wish I could know, are we talking 5 books? Are we talking 100 books?
Mhm.
I don't know what that answer is.
Yeah.
So I can really only reference the one book that continuously gets referenced. For me, I have a real hang up that our students could not look at that material on our websites. We would not allow that. We would be notified as parents. It would show up on our reports that our kids tried to access that. Our staff cannot play videos that shows that content. But then we're also like fighting this battle that it seems crazy that we would ever even consider not having a book like that on our shelves. I can't make my brain make sense around that.
Mhm.
And I think that at least most of the parents I'm friends with, they can't make sense of that either.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that you guys can bring to light for me, and I know we're not talking about just curriculum, but library materials. Why are we saying on one hand, this is totally acceptable, but this absolutely would never be acceptable?
Well, so let me start from the first thing that I think you were asking of the holes with, the experts that are looking at this, that are going through the steps, right? Like the media, they're not licensed librarians or they're
Right.
not. But the 600 plus that are writing these reviews are. And so that is what we're relying on. And we're making sure that we've got not just one media coordinator reading those reviews, we've got a whole team, and it's getting vetted through several steps. Until we have a district librarian, I don't know how else we could do that.
Is there an opportunity, since it's in our policy, to have parents or citizens as part of that committee?
I mean, we could get back. to
I don't know
that,
how
yeah.
realistic that is. That's why
Yeah.
I'm asking the question. I just know that's what it's saying that is important to us as a district.
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that question right now, but I mean,
Totally.
it's
I
something
understand
that we can consider. There's a lot of books, so that would be a big commitment. So that's something we could get back to you on.
I know when I talked to Marlene too, I feel like this conversation, in some ways it's so subjective. It's super subjective. Like what I'm comfortable with my kid reading is different than you. It's different than you. It's different than you. It's different than my neighbor across the street. It's different than this teacher. It's different than that teacher. And I don't know. I mean, you guys have actually spent a lot of time having these conversations. This has not been a small moment in time.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we could circle the horn on this like over and over and over again and still not get to a place where we all say like, we can kind of agree that for most people, this is a good standard. I honestly worry that we probably can't get to that place. And so what I was asking Marlene is there a possibility to then take what we say we're doing, go through the books that we have on file, make sure they are rated correctly, and then say to parents, hey, if you do not want your kids to check out a book that is of this rating, you have the ability. It's almost like you need to opt in if your child is going to check out a book that has strong sexual, whatever we choose those characteristics are, versus I have to find the book, then tell you I'm flagging that one particular book. I don't know what the laws are around that, but I'm like, does that protect the families to say, I don't want my kid doing that, while it allows everybody else to live the way they were living? I'm just trying to figure out what a solution is.
So I think that there is a degree of risk with legality in that. I did some more research recently, and there's a couple of things that I think I just should read and share with you.
Sure.
So the American Library Association was founded in 1876. It was post-World War II when censorship began. And it is the oldest, and it's also the largest organization in the world for libraries, reviews of libraries, all things libraries. So it's like, that's where you want to go if you want to understand what best practice is. One of the things it says is, what if a group develops a rating system? What would ALA advise? It says, any private group's rating system, regardless of political, doctrinal, or social viewpoint, is subjective and is meant to be predisposed to the public's attitude. The use of libraries therefore would be violating the Library Bill of Rights. Libraries should remain viewpoint neutral, providing information that patrons seek any rating system equitably, regardless of the group's viewpoint. When we were like in the middle of this work, I asked, should we have a rubric? Should we have a, and every person that we have spoke to has advised against us. They have said over and over and over, rely on the professional reviews. They are trustworthy. If you follow the age requirement and it meets what books you are trying to get into your libraries, whatever it may be, whether it's a certain genre that we're trying to get, or whether it's science fiction, go to these reviews and you can trust what they are saying.
Well, and I'm not suggesting those aren't trustworthy at all. That's not what I'm trying to suggest. I'm not an expert in this, nor do I want to be. I don't want to recreate a rubric system at all. I'm just saying, then use whatever system that you're already currently suggesting. Totally cool. But is there not an opportunity for parents just to say, hey, flat out, I'm sorry, I don't want my kids to access that type of material while they're at your building. I mean, if we're saying we want to be a partnership and we've done the reverse and say, hey, you can flag, if you want to flag any book you want, we'll flag it. Your kid can't check it out here.
Yeah.
We do have, then we're saying we have a way to identify that. So
Yeah.
why can it not be the reverse so that a family says, hey, I can't go through your whole catalog of books and pick out every single book that is going to involve this, but I'm just going to let you know, I don't want my own child to read that. Like, I'm just trying to come up with a different solution that will make families feel comfortable with what their kids are accessing at school. And I don't think we're going to come to a solution by figuring out what is safe for every single age group. Like, I just don't know that we'll ever get there.
Okay. Hi again. Hi. Okay. So Abby, are you, can you just share one more time what exactly are you asking, for families to opt out of controversial material?
No, can they opt in? Can they say, I'm going to sign off, just like I have to sign off for my kid to go on a field trip. I'm going to sign off. My kid can check out books that have sexually explicit, whatever it is, sexually explicit material. I'm fine with that. My kid's a mature reader. We have mature conversations. I'm open to that. Whatever it is, it's our personal choice for our family, and I'm totally good with it.
Right.
Great. My kid is not limited in any way. But you, for instance, feel like that's totally unacceptable and goes against your family values. So you don't have to opt in. We're not going to just say, oh, yes, you check out whatever you want unless your family finds it and says otherwise. I think that, like, for me as a school board member, I'm like, how do we be responsible for our students without saying this is I think it's unrealistic that a parent would be able to, I scan through just like the new adage we have where the parents send out or the teacher sends out the list of books that your kid's going to have as an option at the beginning of the trimester. I think that's awesome. I just looked through it for both of my kids, scanned it, read it. I could do that. That's reasonable. I cannot go through your entire library. So, and most parents, I would say, cannot. And so that alone feels like, are we any closer to a fix? I don't know, because it's almost unrealistic that a parent could do that.
Okay. So I did reach out to our legal counsel around this issue, and I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same thing.
I prepped her. I told her I was going to ask this question. So this is not like out of left field.
I want to make sure I'm answering the right question. You know, he said that we really, as a school district, want to follow industry standard, and doing a process like that would be pretty problematic. It would certainly put us at risk. And I wrote some of his words, not mine. But, you know, we almost inadvertently would end up excluding kids. And often the kids that we would be excluding would be our students who maybe had language barriers. And why that is different is because you follow the industry standard and what other school districts are doing around library materials and the opt-out versus opt-in. We want to stay in line with that. Otherwise, it does put us at risk for lawsuits. And the lawsuits, you know, could be anything from Office of Civil Rights investigation. Once we accidentally, inadvertently don't include this student, that could be a potential lawsuit. It could be an exclusionary lawsuit from a publisher. There's a variety of different risks that he kind of explained that were involved in something like this. And so I did reach out to legal counsel, and he encouraged us not to go down this route because it's not the industry standard. He also was really concerned with our ability to maintain a system like that, like the logistics involved. And it's great while we are here But what happens when we go through a budget reduction and we have to cut staff and they can't maintain that kind of system? That will open us up to risk right away. And so those were some of the things he shared with me about this particular topic. So that's kind of who we fall back on for our obligations and around the law and legality of things like that.
Okay, I have to chew on that for a while because I'm obviously not a lawyer, but yeah, you can ask a question 1 second.
No,
To me, it doesn't make a ton of sense because from the legality part, because I do feel like that is not a determination that we are making as a school district for families. We are allowing them to make that choice. And so we are not choosing to exclude them. In my brain, it feels like we are not choosing to exclude them. We are giving them the opportunity to choose what's acceptable for their kids' education. I don't know how we are limiting people.
I feel like you guys are talking about two different things.
Okay,
maybe
we
connect
are.
I feel like you're talking about categorizing books in a different way, like a reverse catalog. Instead of opting out, you're opting in, right?
Right.
Where you're saying we can't come up with a new say it for me. Thank you.
I get what you're
You
saying.
can't come up with a new one because it inherently excludes kids from reading books, right? Is what you're saying. It could prevent it.
Could prevent
which is a legal
what
problem.
public schools provide, which
Yeah.
is the industry standard of what a school public library is. It is in conflict with that.
Like we can't reverse categorize the selections.
Correct.
Thus, we can't opt in.
And I am not a lawyer either. But that is kind of the outline that I was given, the direction that I was.
And I mean, I was really just trying to come up with another creative idea to try to get closer to solving a problem that it is a problem. It's a problem that we hear from parents about regularly. And I'm just trying to solve how can we get closer to finding something that's reasonable to a majority of our parents. It feels like if then we have to go back to, okay, we'll keep pressing the system for where we're at now, then the library selection guidelines document that has been created to me, I don't think puts us any further. It's a beautiful document. I don't think it gets us any closer to the concerns that parents have, because you guys are discussing that when you actually talk and you're on these steering committees, you guys do have exclusionary guidelines that you discuss or things that you exclude based on. None of that is in here. It's not, there's no reason to exclude anything on here. And if I read this through, I feel like I could include any single book I wanted to based on some of these criteria because there's no exclusionary guidelines. So to me, it just seems really gray. And I don't mean to discount the work. I know it has been a ton of work and I know we don't have a librarian, but I still feel like we've done all this work and I don't know that I don't sense that we're really any closer to providing in our libraries what our parents are asking us to provide. And I want to figure out how to fix that. So we're not talking about this all year and producing nothing different.
Right. So one thing that the reviews do provide is they do provide age appropriateness, like they will recommend what age, which is an exclusionary guideline. That is a practice that we did even with the book that's under reconsideration. We determined that it was 14 and up. That is a natural place at the high school. We excluded it using those guidelines from the websites, the referenced websites. So there are those exclusionary guidelines that are easy to do, quick, it doesn't take a lot of thought with that. But to answer your question around parents, it sounds like we just need to get some parents to start having these conversations with us and bring them in to better understand what do they need so that they feel like their kids are safe, and try to work on that piece with the families that we're talking about.
We've heard from parents. We heard all last year from parents constantly. I've heard from parents who are like, I don't want my kids reading this at school. So that's why I say we've done this all year. And I feel like we're still in a similar spot. And And when we just talked about, could we go back and look at all of our books and double check, like, you double check the journals, double check the rating? It sounded like that's something we have not done.
We have not done
And
that yet.
so we haven't even done that step. And the first book we looked at, we already recognized right away it wasn't the right location. So it seems like, I don't know where we magically find people to have the time to actually do that. I know this is not like poof out of thin air, this happens. I'm aware of those constraints, but it seems like at the very least, that's something that we need to check what we have in our current library and see if they are age appropriate based on the standards that you guys have determined.
Right. I mean, I do think that is an actionable next step that we can certainly go down that route of like, okay, let's look at these books. It will take us some time. We have a very small teaching and learning team. It will take us some time to go through that, and our media educational coordinators are certainly busy with kids right now, and that is their number one priority. So it will take time, but we can do that, but it will take time. And right now, I'm not sure how much time. We'd have to really talk to them and see what they would think before giving that kind of answer. In regards to the families is, we've heard from a handful of families, or maybe even more than that, about, some concerns around the books, but we haven't really dug into with our families. What is it that we can do to make it easier for you, so about the student, your child checking out the book in the library and really doing that kind of empathy interview work to understand what are the key pieces of this problem, like really get down into the root causes of the challenges that they're facing so that we can better problem solve around it. And that's kind of what I mean. Like, we need to dig deeper besides, it's this controversial material and what and getting the lists out. Like, we thought that was a good approach.
It was, yeah.
We thought cataloging was a good approach, but it's not. Or it's not sufficient. And so then we need to really have those conversations, like us. We need to have them so we can really problem solve with our families.
And I mean, I do think these are all good steps and they've all taken a ton of time. I just also want us to make progress. I want us to get somewhere where we say like, oh, most of our families really feel comfortable at this point. And I think that until this last year, when this kept coming up in our meetings, most parents didn't really know. They sent their kids to school and didn't know that some of the books that they might check out might have that. And I don't want to say it's just controversial material, because I don't think the concerns I've heard are more, they're not so much about the subject matter as about the vulgar language or the aggressive violence. It's more that than it is the content of what's being discussed. And so I think those things can kind of get confused.
Sure.
Okay. I know I'm not the only person that has questions, but
just to piggyback, I think what Abby's concerns are, and I think what my concerns are, is that this now flow chart going forward seems good for new material coming in. I think what's upsetting or concerning is that we now have a library that hasn't necessarily been weeded in over 10 years. And the book that's in review process is from a book that was allowed during that 10-year period. So the question is, how many more of these books are in the library that maybe would be questionable or taken out or removed at a different age bracket, basically. So in the work ahead slide, I didn't see anything about weeding that gigantic library. And I know that that is no small undertaking, but it's, I think, a very important next step into not having more book review process coming out of the weeds at random times.
In my board presentation, our board presentation last month, we talked about phase 2 work, and that the steering committee is going to create a comprehensive how to update, maintain, and weed out books. And so during the course of this year, we are going to create that process. and then begin that work. But we just ran out of time because of budget issues last year. We couldn't meet as often as we wanted to. We had hoped that we had that done last year as well. Mhm.
And I agree that I don't think we've just scratched the surface, but I don't think we're anywhere complete on this topic in terms of making everyone feel okay who is reviewing a book and feels like they have an avenue, and protecting their rights just as much as protecting the rights of people who want to check out every title.
Mhm.
There is a line there, and we need to find the best way to walk it
Mhm.
as a district and have our parents be heard. So.
Anybody else have any other questions?
No, well, I just have one comment. I'll keep it short. I wasn't part of the board when a lot of these things came up, but I'm following the flow and the ideas. And Harmony, I really appreciate you breaking it down into there. We were overlapping a lot of things here. But you clarified it beautifully. I think this flow sheet going forward for new books, to me, it makes sense. We're relying on a rating system that's reputable and appears to me to be very valid. The analogy was the movie rating system, which we all trust to some degree. We can always argue my movie should have been PG, you know, but that's all of our own lenses and perspectives. So given that we believe we can trust going forward, I'm on that. We have a reconciliation process, which hopefully won't be used much. And I do appreciate one thing Krista brought to light for me in a conversation. And I appreciate this in the going forward process, that this is a review group for school libraries, not public libraries. There is a difference there. And I appreciate that. So I like what I see so far, but clearly more to be done to clarify the weed out process.
Oh, go ahead.
I just had one quick clarification. First of all, thank you for clearing up this process. And yeah, I've heard from parents too. And I think a lot of the parents I've heard from trust you, it's a school district and the professional organizations to make good choices. And I've heard that over and over again. So I just want to give you, there's positive. There's a lot of parents that do support what is happening already and what has happened. Yeah, just a quick clarification. So books that would be in a classroom. So I assume some teachers have like classroom libraries. I'm assuming it goes to that same process, correct? Like if a teacher has a classroom library or like books, choice books in their library. I'm not talking about curricula. I'm talking about just like, doesn't that happen? I assume that happens.
Go ahead.
So our teachers in their classroom libraries generally use their professional judgment to choose their books and their education. They sometimes we purchase them for them, but their classroom libraries, it is their professional expertise as an educator in whatever field so that they're teaching in to determine those books. And the reality is in our elementary classroom libraries, a lot of those books are donated. They're passed on from teacher to teacher. The classroom libraries don't they're like bequeathed to the next person. And then they generally weed what they want or don't want, or they have students weed high interest books or low interest books and keep the high interest books. So it's a little bit different for elementary.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want, also you were talking about you're having you're gonna try to do monthly meetings for teacher request books. I don't really quite understand what that means.
So books were being decided and purchased in isolation a lot of the time with the media coordinator, or maybe conversations or recommendations with some of their colleagues. And so what we have put into place this year is, in addition to what they already do, with their teacher colleagues or the media coordinators, is we have a monthly PLC with our elementary media coordinators, and then we have a monthly PLC with our secondary media coordinators. And in that meeting, they bring all of the new titles that they are requesting and wanting to purchase. that have already gone and looked through all of the selection guidelines. And then that team or that PLC will look at all of the titles and then confirm, yes, we're good and it's the appropriate age and we can move forward or not.
Where do the main list for requests come from? Is that teachers? Is that media centers, parents, is it professional organizations? All of the above?
All of the above.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
Student
Okay.
requests. Yep.
Okay.
Lots
Student requests.
lots of student requests. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. No, that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Yep.
So we did discuss in previous meetings with the cataloging process that the teachers were going to be cataloging their classroom libraries and sending that list out to the parents whose students reside in those classrooms. What is the status of that?
Right now, I believe all but one of our high school classroom libraries have been cataloged. And so are you saying you want a PD? I don't think I gathered that. I thought we wanted to catalog all the libraries, not necessarily make a list of all the libraries.
Well, there was discussion of, in addition to creating the online catalog system for the libraries in the schools,
Mhm.
that so that parents could also flag a book in a teacher library if they didn't want their student
Yes,
reading it,
that can-
that the teachers were going to be sending out their personal classroom library list to the parents, whether it's on Canvas, publishing it somewhere, notifying the parents of that, so that the parents could flag books that are within the classroom libraries as well.
We actually so we cataloged all the classroom libraries, so you can look at them in the Destiny system. They're under a sub-location based off your classroom teacher, and you can look up any book. So that is what we did. And
So a parent can go into that
and then you
system.
can flag it. You
Okay.
can let the teacher know. And, actually, you can even let the media center coordinator know that, hey, I don't want my child reading this book. It'll flag it throughout the entire system. So it doesn't matter whether they're checking it out from the library or they're checking it out from the teacher. They'll see the thing that pops up that says you cannot, cannot check out this book.
So in the Destiny system, when you type in a book in the search bar and it brings it up, if I'm just in the main page there, is that just the library or is that if it's in the entire school, including teachers?
It's in the entire school for high school right now. We're working on high school and then you'll see like sub-location, and the sub-location, if it's in a classroom's library, it'll say like a Jack classroom for Amy Jack's classroom, if that's who your child has. If it's Joe Dalton's classroom, it'll say Dalton's classroom. And so then you can really identify where, and the system then the flagging travels between the media center and the library in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just revisiting this exclusionary situation, because I mean, if there's no way to, I'm going to have to look into the legality challenges that you've stated with regards to whether or not parents, you can give ratings on books all day long. There can be, I mean, there's books that you can easily say, you don't have to grade it, you don't have to rate it, but you can say contains, right?
Sure.
And so I personally don't see anything, any legal challenges with a parent saying, I don't want my child checking out books that contain these things. There's no legal challenge there. I'm confident of that, but I'm happy to. Okay, but
that's my understanding too.
Okay, but I thought you had said something different earlier. And so with the exclusionary process, it's still feeling like there really isn't one. Like, what is it that would be in a book that would result in the district saying, no, this isn't for us?
Well, we would rely on the reviews, and if professional reviews, the age requirement is the exclusion that we would look at.
Okay, so the age requirement. So I get what you're saying with the age requirement, but there's still content in some of those books that is just highly not okay for a school setting. So there's no exclude, so what I'm hearing is there's basically no exclusionary. There's nothing to exclude. It could be, I mean, and we're, with the way times are going, it could be some pretty graphic, heavy stuff. And there's nothing to say that, you know what, this isn't for us. This doesn't meet our standards. As long as it's age appropriate, we're going to take it. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I don't think that's entirely true.
Okay.
So every time we have a very different height. So let's say we walk through that process and we have a book. Let's say it's a student who requests it and it goes through our media coordinator, and it is in the reviews, and on the reviews, it says something like, this is for, this is a great book for middle school students. And the student who requested it was a third grader to go into the media center. By using the review, we might say, okay, we're probably not going to have this in our elementary library, right? That's one way we would do it. Maybe the review is, this book has some violence. I think that's when it goes to that second team, and they really have to have conversations around, is this truly appropriate for this level? That's when it goes to that second team. And then they do have to make some judgment. They have to read the book, perhaps. Maybe they look at some common reviews. Maybe they talk to teachers who have read the book and have used the book. And so then that team makes the choice around, like, this content is not appropriate. And they are making an
For that age level,
exclusion
is what you're
choice.
saying.
For that age level. That doesn't mean that elementary media center is librarian or educational coordinator is going to then purchase the book for middle school. That just means that they won't purchase it for the elementary school.
Okay. I guess my question is, I'm wanting to get past the age restriction. I'm wanting to get into what specific items or scenarios in a book would prohibit us, or not prohibit, but would we then say, this isn't for our district, right? It could be a rated R book, right? And it could have like super violent rape scenes in it.
Sure.
Are we going to take it because it says it's appropriate for 14 and above? Is that not considered an exclusionary item? I mean, that's what I'm trying to get an answer on is there anything specific that we would hold standards around that we wouldn't want to pull into our district?
Well, Chris, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah, you're
can
fine.
you give us an example of a title of a book that these review sources would exclude from a school library at all levels? And if you don't have one, I'll throw one out there that everyone knows the title of. What would they say about the book 50 Shades of Grey? That's a charged book. It's in a movie. It's in the public library. Everyone knows what that book is. It's in the public library. Everybody knows that it is. Everybody read it behind their Sports Illustrated. So is there an example of a book that they would exclude? That's, I think, what Chris is asking. Sorry I was not trying to make light of it, but trying to get specific. Thank you.
So when you do that review process, if there is a book that has been denied access, do you keep record of that?
That we say.
That we say no to?
Yes, we just created a pretty extensive.
I would love to see that list. Okay. That's the point I think we're all trying to make.
Right. I think that is the point we're trying to make, that although this is new, and I do respect the fact that this is new criteria, it feels like there isn't a reason to exclude a book. That's what it feels like as a board member, and that's what it feels like to parents. So, and even when we talk about it, it's so hard to describe what it looks like and what that conversation might look like. And then that's determined on who we've hired to do that job that day and who's in that position. It is so subjective that I don't understand why why we don't have the ability to take the same scale that you're already using to say, these are, this is the rating. We didn't make it up. This is, from a very trusted resource. This is the rating it was given. But if you don't feel comfortable with your kid checking that book out, that's okay. You can let us know that, and we won't check out books to your child that are in that rating scale. We're not making it up. We're not choosing it, and we're giving you all the choice as a parent to determine. Now, I understand there's limitations with tracking it. I get it. I just don't see a way out of this circle with this same conversation. It just feels like we aren't any closer to having anything to exclude. We aren't even really comfortable putting on here that age requirement is possibly an exclusion. We talk about it, but it's not in our document. We still aren't talking about having parents as part of that committee. We aren't requiring our classroom libraries to go back and look through their materials. So if I'm a parent who's been complaining about this and now I'm listening, I'm like, oh, here we go. We're doing it for the school library, but not for our classroom. It just feels like we're getting closer, but we're not resolving it. And and I know we don't want to be like the district doing something different than everybody else in the planet. But I feel like we're all having similar issues, and we should be able to collectively come to this is what we do as adults, right? We teach our kids, we talk about it, we have these tough conversations, we come to some agreement that seems right for most people. And I feel like we're just not getting to that place. I really respect you and I, Amanda and I, we have not had these deep conversations. Marlene and I have, and I really appreciate that. And I hate if it feels like contentious or appears that way to people listening who maybe aren't here, because that is not the spirit of our conversations. And I, as a person, have no desire to limit what anybody else's kid is reading. I just don't. I don't have that desire, but I do desire for parents to be able to partner with us. And so figuring out how to get closer to that end game is really my goal here. And maybe that's it.
Well,
But
yeah,
we may not come up with a solution tonight.
Wonder if we need to go back to the table and start working on this a little bit differently.
I would venture to say, I know they would need training, but if we wanted to go back and at least catalog the things we have, at least make sure they're age appropriate, I would bet we could get a handful of parents who would say, I commit to you training me and me just telling you yes or no. This meets, I would say our media specialists are getting the same training from you guys. And I don't know how you'd select those people, but I'm sure there'd be some people who would at least help you catalog what we currently have.
Sure.
Based on your standards. So I don't know. Maybe that's all. But I'm glad we can have these conversations. I know they're hard. I know they irritate people and frustrate people. But I just do think we have some work still to do for this part of it.
Another idea is, instead of opting people out to opt in, what an idea that just came to mind is if families are concerned about the books, in the meantime of us trying to get them all cataloged and weeded out, if an idea would be, if a family is concerned that they don't have the time to look through all of the books at their kids' level, and or if they would prefer to say, hey, I don't want my child to be able to check out a book at this point in time without my permission, or something like that.
To me, that seems like way more of a legal issue to be excluding kids entirely from checking out books. And if we're talking about students who have language barriers, that seems far more exclusionary.
So we have parent view, right?
Yeah.
And there's systems set up within the school where if a child has a special need around something, it's in the system, right? Where teachers are aware of that. All the students have, I don't know the software well enough to go into it, but is there not a way where within that system, when a child goes to check out a book, that parents can go into that system and say, I don't want, there's some court somewhere in there. I don't want, my child isn't permitted to check out books with this content or with this rating, and it's just there. It's already in this. There needs to be no new system created. There's just a new or an area somewhere within that system that can already be utilized for that purpose.
We actually have Brady Strutz here, and he can answer that question.
That's not currently a feature of the Destiny.
Not of the Destiny, but I'm talking parent view and the child's own record. That's within parent view or whatever's used. Parent view, I refer to that because it's the bridge, the technology bridge between the parent and the school, right? It's where we go to look at stuff. It's where the school enters stuff. So it just seems to make sense to me that why couldn't you put some sort of flag within that system so that when a kid checks out a book, it's simple. They go in there. I mean, that's where all the fines are held if they don't return a book. So why can't we just, add something in there where you're simply looking at it and, oh, this parent says, this material isn't okay. And I just need to get a parent note for you to have this book, right? It could be that simple. It doesn't have to
I don't
be.
think that's super simple because I think it has to match whatever rating we're using, even if it's just age. Like, I'm not a librarian, so I don't know the answer to this, but I'm guessing you're not going to know. I mean, a book may say it's appropriate for this age group,
Yeah.
but it's likely not going to go into detail about all the reasons why, nor I can't even imagine the lift it would be to document that and catalog that and maintain that. That's why I'm like, at the very most basic level, could a parent just say, sorry, books that are this and above, I'm just not gonna allow because I personally am not concerned about the content. I'm just not gonna risk it. I don't think, I don't think as a parent, I could go in there and say, I just don't want my child to check out books with sexual content, because then it's just like, well, geez, what books does that?
What's this and above though?
Well, because this, I think we could make clear, I don't even know if this is even possible, so we should probably even go down this road, but I think the rating scale, if it's made by somebody else, it's easy. I bet they could have brought it tonight and said, this is what the rating scale looks like. This is what is already produced for us. This is the new scale we're using. I think if this was even an idea to entertain, you could let parents look at that scale and say, this is a scale I'm comfortable with my kid
and then
checking out up to, but not adding like extra
and then
content measures, I don't think
that's
trackable.
That's what I'm talking
Oh, okay.
about. That's
Sorry.
what I'm talking about. And then you put that into the parent view system or the child's record so that there's record of it.
I don't know.
Well,
no, and this is bigger than this, and this is like probably a whole nother conversation, and I know we have other things to get to, and I know we're not going to come up with a solution tonight, but I do think these conversations matter because I know we all go home and sometimes we think of things later that we're like, oh, but this is possible, or this conversation can lead to something else that is possible. So they are useful, even if they go on longer.
and it is, yes, it's a long conversation, but I think it's beneficial because this has been a very hot topic for several years. It's something that came up during the online learning time and this is an issue and we need to find a way to address it. It's not a quick fix and there's a lot of conversation that has to happen around it, but we have to find that way to respect all families and accommodate that. We just do with the direction things are going. They're like movies when I was a teen that were rated R or PG now, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, it's reasonable to expect that there are certain values that you just don't want being broken when you send your child off to the school day. It's just, that's where I'm coming from. And it's a hot topic with parents. They're concerned about it. And so I appreciate the engagement and I know it's going to be an ongoing work.
Did you want him to answer about parents?
Yes.
So, yeah, no, that's great. I'm happy to be involved in the conversation. And we spent time so Parent View and Destiny don't really talk to each other. So it's not currently a built-in feature of the software. That's the really short answer. The longer answer is we've spent time on the phone with Fall at Destiny support and with the ESD who manages our Fall at Destiny instance, probing and pushing the boundaries of our knowledge and their knowledge of the system to figure out what technical features are currently available to us. And we've ruled out a lot of things that we thought were really great ideas. And we keep coming back to what we know the software can support technically is if a parent or a teacher reaches out to our librarian and says, hey, this is a book title I don't want my student reading, or I don't want my student reading any more books about Mario. They can put those dynamic notes in the student flag field, and anytime the student goes to check out a book, that message comes up. And so whoever is checking that out can see the message and can act on that information in a dynamic way, depending on what that message is. And so that's a tool we do have and that we are utilizing. And it still allows for something, it's not just a single title block. It can be a dynamic piece that's tied to conversations and communication with our teachers and with our librarians.
So if a parent didn't want their child to check out a book with sex or violence or obscenity, we could note that in the system. And then if a child brought that book up to the librarian and said, I want to check this out, and they scan it and then they see it and they go, well, nope, you can't. That's a current thing that we can do.
But how would the librarian know what's all in that book? But
we don't.
yeah.
Yes, that is.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
That is one of the challenges.
So we do have that wonderful system set out or set up. It was sent out to, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling my words. Yeah. It was sent out to parents. I would love, I don't know that parents really know how to. I mean, I fumbled around in it a little bit. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. I've looked up a lot of books, but all I've really gotten is I've only gotten to the point of looking them up and seeing if they're there or not. You're talking about a lot of different subcategories and ways to enter. Is there a way that we could, at a future board meeting, have you guys come and display that so that parents can watch and really know how to operate that system and be familiar with it?
Yes, and even better, we can probably just make a video module that every family can look at anytime they want.
Okay, that is better. Yes. Yeah. And then just make it send out another email. This is to watch.
Or I know it can be on the Library Media Center website.
That's great. Okay.
Just going one step further, while we're thinking about these tools and how we're going to implement them and do tutorials, if we're going to go down this road of making parents aware of how they can flag certain categories or titles, how are we going to actually practically put that into play every year? Is that something that at the start of the year with new teachers, we say, this is, a Google sheet goes out, Mr. Pace, he puts out a Google sheet to all his parents and he says, if you want to opt out of certain titles or categories, please fill in this sheet. And then it can go to the media coordinator and then they can update the system. Something like that. Like, how are we actually practically going to get that information from parents to our media coordinator in the system? So just something to think about.
I think that's a really good question. I do think we would want to talk to our teaching staff since it's their lift, right? But I think we can come up with an answer.
All right. Well, we will attempt to wrap this up. I just want to reiterate, I can't speak for everybody else, but my goal is not to limit really what our library is offering. I want it to be age appropriate. I'm not looking to limit what teachers offer either. I don't want to tell them what should or shouldn't be in their classrooms. I'm just trying to think of a way for parents to have a choice in figuring out what their kid has available to them, if that is their desire. And even though we hear from the parents who have concerns, I don't think we're talking like the greater majority of our population. So I would venture to say this is not a massive group, but I think that we need to meet this group where they're at and at least try to come up with something that is satisfactory. Okay, you guys have answered lots of our questions. I think everyone up here is very satisfied with the answers we've received. So thank you very much for being here. I know it's a rough presentation to go through, but thank you.
Thank you.
I thought we were going to solve that tonight, Marlene. I felt good about it and then we just didn't get there. All right. Now we are going to move on to the second read of OSBA policy updates. Dr. Lyon has been chomping at the bit to get to this.
I'm happy to
Do it.
report of the 13 policies that are up for adoption, none of them have anything to do with instructional materials.
They don't.
So that's the good news. 13 policies and or administrative rules were a first read last month. We did not receive any feedback or suggestions for changes from any of the board members. So with that said, the recommendation is to adopt the OSBA recommended policy updates as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to adopt the OSBA recommended policy updates?
Director Hawkins, I move that we adopt the OSBA recommended policy updates as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion? I believe there's not. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. All right. You're up next to present a policy for deletion.
Okay, as we discussed in the work session, the 2023 Oregon legislature passed House Bill 2753, which removed a prohibition on compensation and allowed school district boards to provide each voting member of the board with a stipend not to exceed $500 per month. This does two things. One is hugely important and very good for public education, and that is it removes a barrier that could be seen as an equity barrier for service on local school boards because of the very onerous nature of daycare and work commitments and that kind of thing. You are excluding a number of potential community members from even considering to be on a board. So we talked about moving forward with the stipend. I strongly recommended that we do so and follow the new current law. But what we learned is that in order to be compliant, we need to first take action on the deletion of policy BHD. And what that does is that puts us in compliance by deleting policy BHD, board member compensation and expense reimbursement. At this time, we can then move forward with the new law and the stipend. What will happen is that in one of the future updates, there will be a replacement for policy BHD, another recommended OSBA policy. And at that time, after if you so choose to delete this policy, we will bring forth the first reading of the new policy. Could be a couple months, could be 6 months, I don't know, but they will get to that. So the recommendation as a 1-2 on this stipend is that first, the board takes action and our recommendation is to delete policy BHD as per OSBA recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to delete board policy BHD?
I make a motion to delete board policy BHD as per OSBA recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. And lastly, you will present a resolution.
Okay, so now you're in a position to receive a recommendation to adopt the resolution to approve board member stipends as presented. And just as an explanation, with the passage of House Bill 2753 in 2023, district school boards are now allowed to provide stipends of up to $500 per month to board members. This evening, the board will vote on a resolution to approve and implement board member stipends for active members of the Sherwood School District Board of Directors. I would recommend that you include in the motion that this is retroactive to the time of the passage of this law, which was July something, 2023.
And the resolution actually includes language to that
Thank you.
extent.
Thank you. All
Of
right,
course it
very
does.
good. Of course it does.
Of course it does.
Okay.
Is there a recommended motion? Oh, is there a recommended motion? Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the board policy?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution to approve board member stipends as presented, retroactive to July 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And with that, I will briefly just say, it's kind of an interesting resolution for us to make a decision on. We are passing it. I believe we're all in agreement that we're passing it to uphold the law that has gone before us, but in doing so, we also have a choice whether or not we choose to receive it. And so that will be up to the independent or individual board member to make that decision. With that, the next meeting will be held on October 18th, and this meeting is adjourned. Thanks for coming.